This is a Construction Tales brief safety topic. In this video, I'm going to discuss even more on the dangers of electricity. Let's review even more data pertaining to a ground fault circuit interrupter, also known as a GFCI. Wood and rubber both serve as an insulator that protects you from making contact with the person who is energized. There is usually one person in the business with whom I held a 2-inch by 4-inch stick of wood just in case he got hung up on the panel that he was working in. I was fully prepared since I perceived him as rather reckless in nature when he was working. He was one guy that I genuinely thought would take me down with him with an arc blast. Of course, this is another story for a later date. Switching gears back to rubber and wood, who both serve as insulators. Here is another interesting fact for your mental Rolodex. You should stay in your car during a thunder and lightning storm since your rubber tires insulate you from any potential electricity leaks to ground. The water on the ground pools into puddles and serves as a conductor. Therefore, you should stay in your car. Besides, walking around during a thunderstorm makes you a sitting duck for when lightning strikes. On the other hand, if you run around in a field with a long metallic object, you run an even higher risk of getting electrocuted via a lightning strike. Of course, this is because a metallic object is made out of material that actually conducts electricity, meaning it allows it to flow freely to ground. You serve as a path between the metal and the ground. Just stay in the car. Just avoid those dances with electricity since they are not any fun. Just know that the longer you dance with an energized circuit, the more likely you are to suffer a heart attack and die. Electricity will also cook a person from the inside out and dehydrate them. Make sure you call an ambulance immediately if you see a person under these circumstances. By now, you should understand the importance of using a GFCI strip either while completing tasks at work or plugging along on hobbies while at home. After listening to this, you may want to use a GFCI at all times. They are very important to use while working in construction. When you are on a job site, such as a brand new deck job, you are susceptible to different weather conditions. Weather conditions, such as rain or snowstorm, can make you even more subjected to being a part of the impromptu path to ground for an electrical supply. If you see a GFCI strip submerged in water, do not assume that the circuit has been de-energized while underwater for the GFCI strip. Visually trace the cord back to the source of power, use gloves, and disconnect the power. Another good thing to do is to periodically test your GFCI strip. In the center of the strip, there is a test and reset button. If it doesn't immediately trip and reset as designed, then proceed to remove it from service and replace it with another GFCI strip. Be mindful that water also serves as a conductor of electricity. It's a bad combination if you choose to wade in a body of water that contains stray electricity. There is a high probability of getting electrocuted by wading in the water. Here is another field tip. Beware that you should not have multiple GFCI receptacles monitoring the same circuit. Adding multiple GFCIs to a circuit will just cause problems such as constantly shutting down via opening the circuit and tripping all of the receptacles on the circuit. You will have the best luck if you wire the multiple GFCI receptacles in parallel and only on the line side of the GFCI receptacle. More specifically, none of the GFCI receptacles are being wired to be fed from the load side of each device. If they are not fed from the load side, they are not subjected to be tripped by the device or devices. The term tripped means opening up the circuit and shutting down the receptacle. Each device is highly sensitive, so having multiple GFCIs can make the device trip very frequently, and you don't want that. Another key thing to remember when you're installing a home GFCI receptacle is to make sure that you don't cross the wires of the line side hot leg, which is identified as either black, red, or blue, and the neutral, identified as white, with the load side of the hot leg and neutral. As per the National Electrical Code, also known as NEC, GFCI receptacles are required in wet locations such as the bathroom and kitchen. All electricians must be able to quickly reference and follow the National Electrical Code. This electrical code is considered to be the, quote, worst job that you are allowed to do. In large cities, such as New York City, the NEC has an amended section in the code book that gives out even more rules than the National Electrical Code. This is because local jurisdiction applies that supersedes the national standard of business practices. Crossing the line and load wires will cause the GFCI receptacle to not work properly. The best way to avoid confusion is to test and identify your line side duo and mark them with white tape. You can then either write hot or load line for the home run group that comes from your main electrical service panel. The wires that continue to another location are called the load side. If you're using a GFCI circuit breaker in your electrical panel, then you identify the outlets being energized in the kitchen or bathroom as GFCI protected. Receptacles being fed from the load side of a GFCI receptacle must also be labeled as GFCI protected. Always put in the effort to lock out, tag out the circuit to ensure that it is de-energized while you are actively changing out the GFCI receptacle. Please take your time and work as safely as possible. Do not allow anyone to force you to do something that you are not comfortable doing. This is especially true if you're an amateur working on electrical components. After all, it is your life that is on the line and not anyone else. I'm aware that I've offered some technical advice. I have tried to break it down into layman's terms as much as possible. If you reach out to me and seek more clarity, I will offer future videos breaking down my talking points into more simpler terms, offering even further clarity. My goal is to be clear and offer something new that empowers you to learn. Well, my friend, this wraps up what I have on some of the dangers of electricity. This concludes this Construction Tales safety topic. Come back for more topics soon.